So the White House card has been announced, and we're going to go through it. We're going to go through the top line information, all the fights on the main card, and how I think this compares to other UFC events. Is it what we expected as the White House card being the best card ever? So getting straight into it, there are 2 title fights, 6 main card fights overall, which I thought there'd be slightly more, maybe an extra title fight in there, maybe 3. First fight on the main card, Diego Lopez versus Steve Garcia. I think this is a good starter. I think Diego Lopez is a great fighter, fought for the title. But winning style, I think this is a matchup where Steve's been brought in as he's an American on the US card. And you'll see this quite a bit, I think, throughout this card. He's been brought in, he's been pushed up the rankings in a sense of he wouldn't have ever got this fight without this card, which fair play, take your opportunities, but it's probably a step too far at current for him. You know, Lopez really has just come off the back of a title shot, and Garcia, I think, is a good few fights away at least, and we need to see some more from him to see that he could be at that level. I think it's a touch too early for him. But look, you get the opportunity, you can suddenly get a win, and you push way up the rankings. He beats Lopez, he's going for a title shot next, I fully expect. So, you know, look, you can really position yourself really well, and look, take your opportunities when they arise, and you can get massive opportunities like this. In 2 fights, you'll be fighting for a title. You know, it may be in your second fight, you'll be fighting for a title after this one. So, yeah, look, I think Lopez gets it done in style. But yeah, a decent enough starter fight for the card. On to the next fight, Bo Nickel versus, because I think not a great fight. I think Bo Nickel a couple of years, a few fights ago, yeah, he was really hyped. But I think even then against Darkus, who is this is meant to be the White House card. You're on a main card as well. Yeah, they're both Americans. Bo Nickel's a big star in America still, I fully expect, but he has lost. It's not a big fight for him. I think the Riddle was a bigger fight for him. I think you're getting Americans on the card, which I fully understand is going to happen. But I think it's a bit of a weird one. I think there's a few other matchups you could have put Bo Nickel in. I don't think you needed. I think you could add Bo Nickel against quite a few more exciting fighters where a bit more of a challenge. I fully expect Bo gets this done quite easily at current, and that may push him up to be, okay, he's back on track. But I think this shows really nothing for us from a Bo Nickel point of view. If he does win, I think he should win, and if he doesn't, that's a more scary thing. If he doesn't, I think that sort of symbolises him not reaching that top level ever, which I think was fully expected from him at the start of his UFC career. So a bit of a weird one. Don't really see why it's been made. Doesn't really make too much sense to me, other than it's a White House card and you want to get Americans on the card. And Bo Nickel needs to be on there against someone, and I think you have options. I wouldn't be surprised, and the rumours are that a card fell out in this whole card. I think it's probably later on, one of the bigger fights, but I wouldn't be surprised if a fight that Bo Nickel had here would have fell through here, because I think that it's a bit of a weird matchup for me that I don't really see why it has been made. But look, tell me in the comments if I'm wrong. Next fight, Rufi versus Chandler. Look, Rufi's been on the card is amazing, but against Chandler, it's a bit of a, okay, there's not really any jeopardy there, I think. Look, Chandler's American. He's going to be on the card at some point in the White House card. He's still one of the biggest American fighters out there in the UFC. Biggest fan bases, things like that. Been on, obviously, the Ultimate Fighter with Conor McGregor, was looking for that McGregor fight and waiting for it for a good long time. So look, this feels like a bit of payback as well for the issues there. Get him a good payday, and I think, to be honest, this could be his retirement fight at the White House. And I think, fair play, not many fighters will ever get the chance to retire at the White House. I think ever again. I don't think this happens again. So for him to do that, fair play, he gets it. But from a fight point of view, yeah, I think it's a tough fight. I think Rufi wins in style. And this is the problem with a lot of these early fights. Where's the jeopardy? I don't see it going any other way than exactly as I see it. And yeah, I don't think Chandler's got it anymore. I don't think he's at that level anymore. And Rufi's very much pushing up. Chandler's going downwards, and Rufi's past Chandler's level, current level, a good few fights ago now. So I think he'll make quite easy work of it. I think Chandler might be able to stall him out for a bit, but I don't think that'll last very long. I think, yeah, round 2, I think Rufi gets it done. On to the next fight. So, Sean O'Malley versus Zahabi, obviously a great fight. I think America versus Canada, I think that's a great matchup idea and idea for promotion of it, especially for the whitehouse card. I think North America, both countries, both fighting against each other on the card. I think that's great. I think it's a great idea, and it's clearly a route of promotion for the UFC. Yeah, I think Sean O'Malley is a massive star, and he will be. I think he's probably the biggest American star at current on the UFC roster. Maybe I'm wrong, but I still think he's very much up there as being the biggest star. Zahabi coming off a good win against Vera, and then before that against Aldo. I think it really shows that I think Sean's probably slightly higher level, but it's quite close. This could go either way because Zahabi, I've never seen him against the better guys than Vera, and Sean O'Malley obviously beat him as well. So it's a bit like, oh, okay, how far are we off these two? And I think it could be a good fight. I think this could be a very good fight. I think very technical. I think Sean wins, but I think it becomes a very competitive fight from early on. I think, which is great. It's exactly what we want to see in these type of cards. For me, you want to see the stars, but you want to see in competitive fights like this one. Sean O'Malley, big star, going against someone who could in a sense beat him, and there's a lot of jeopardy there, and that makes a good fight. So yeah, great fight. I think that gets a very, very big tick from me on the main card. Co-main, Alex Pereira versus Gane at heavyweight. So obviously with Pereira vacating his light heavyweight title, we sort of knew he was going up to heavyweight. He's not vacating in that fight being announced. Without that happening, and he's now facing Gane at the White House. Upper weight, obviously, I think, trying to become a 3-division champion. And look, one of the biggest names in the UFC at current, Alex Pereira, maybe up there with the biggest, I think you could probably say. I think you got Tapuri, you got Makachev. I think Pereira's up there. I think he's in the conversation. Interim belt on the line for this fight, which I think, okay, I think that it's dependent on what has been said between probably Tom and the UFC and how quickly he's likely to be getting back into the cage, because I think that's a key problem. I don't think that actually probably got even discussed. I think the title shot has been put on, the interim title shot anyway, has been put on this card just so there is a title on the line for these two. I think that's the key, because they're going to have to match up with Tom to get the real one anyway. Interesting fight. I think it breathes a bit of life into the heavyweight division at top level. I think Pereira gets it done, if I had to guess, but I think it's a tough fight. I think Gane is naturally fighting at a higher weight. Alex Pereira's come all the way from middleweight up to heavyweight, so look, he's a great fighter, but how much can he do against a guy who's naturally fighting at heavyweight? Yes, Alex Pereira is naturally a big guy as well, but there is a difference there, and how you move and how that weight makes you move. And Garner's used to it, and he's one of the fastest in the heavyweight division. And with his style, I think that could cause Alex a few problems. I think what Alex does is, if I'm being honest, is kicks the legs out of him. I think Garner's going to be slower than some of the middleweights he's faced. and Alex is going to go, look, I can kick you, and he's going to slow him down with them leg kicks early, like he does in a lot of fights, and that will start causing openings up top. But Gane will give it a good go, I think. I think it'll be a great fight. And a very interesting fight, so that definitely gets a tick from me, is the co-main. And then we get on to the main event as Pereira versus Gaethje. I think this is a bit of a pullback from where we were. We had Sean O'Malley versus Zahabi. I'm like, yes. Co-main, yes. Pereira versus Gane. Pereira, I see that name and I go, yes. It's going to be a good fight. Good title shot. And then it's Gaethje. And I just have to feel either Pereira was meant to go against someone else, and that could be a thing, or this was meant to be a different fight, and it's one of the two. I may even edge towards that it's probably meant to be a different fight, and I'll get onto that later. But I think Pereira gets this done easily. I think he shows Gaethje's on the way out. I think he's gonna it's going to be an easy work. And it's going to be a bit of for a whitehouse card where Gaethje gets KO'd quick and shown up in style in this fight, which I think he will. That's not a way you want to end the night, really, for the whitehouse card. And I think that's a key problem. I think that's a key problem in this fight. I think, look, if I was to guess who's meant to be fighting, if it's Pereira, it's going to have to be a Makhachev, I think. But I could be wrong. I don't think, people are speculating, was it Jones, was it Conor involved at all? I don't think they were ever involved, especially in the later stages of decision-making for this card. I think there was always going to be slight issues with that happening, purely around Jones. Are you going to be able to get in the cage? And I think stuff has come out afterwards where likely not. Or you could say you may not turn up. You can't have people not turning up for the fight or in fight camp coming off the card. I think that really destroys the card quite quickly, especially a card like this. You can't really have it. And then McGregor, how much commitment has he got to fighting at current? I don't think you see that. I think he's back in camp or whatever, but I think it's still that there's very much how much can I get him in the cage, and I think for the money they'll probably offer him, and it'll be decent. It'll be decent for a Conor. They'll offer a decent amount of money, but I think, to be honest, McGregor looks at the figure and goes, actually, why? I'm earning that much outside the ring already. It doesn't change my level, and so why would you? I think that's the problem with McGregor getting him in the cage at the minute. Is I think it's going to be very hard to get him back in, if I'm honest, but. On to this main event, I think Pereira gets it done easily. I think it's a bit of a weird fight, really. It's going to end in the night, I believe, in a big KO, a devastating KO for Pereira against, one of the big stars in America for the UFC. So, look, it might be a bit of a quiet crowd at that when that happens, but I think that's really it. I think, I'll get on to the card. I think I can't not believe that this wasn't Kayla Harris versus Nunes. Just an inkling in my mind that is the one that's been missing here. And whether Pereira Gaethje was already on the card as well, could have been. But this could have been the third. This could have been the third title fight. And that would have made more sense as a main event. And I think, earlier in the card, do you have a Bo Nickel on there? You probably do, but do you have you could probably move people around to the prelim, maybe, probably a Chandler, or probably Chandler. You may stay on the main card for what he's done for you, but there's just a feeling that this wasn't exactly the one that they were expecting. And look, I truly believe that this main event just fully got replaced by the Pereira Gaethje, Kayla Harris, and Nunes went in there. I think if that happened, though, I think a very good card. I think you got 3 great fights at the top of that billing. I think you got really interesting 3 fights there. And that's the key. I think it's a decent card overall, but is it the best card we've seen this year, this couple years? With the same type of fighters in the roster. I'll simply put it is probably no. I think if Kayla Harris and Nunes were on there, it's probably a yes. Getting over that line. But I think better than UFC 300 on paper. I think for me, I think it is at current state. But I think UFC 306 is better overall, and especially with the people you had at that time and the levels they were at. Have a look, because if you think about it now, Sean O'Malley's on this card as well, but O'Malley was up there fighting Dvalishvili for the title. I think it's just a better card overall. And look, had they had people, I think a card got, like I'm saying here, there's many rumours about cards and people not being available. And we're talking about one fight, and probably a high-profile fight on this card, but could have been multiple fighters. I can see gaps in this card with Bo Nickel. Bo Nickel, probably, I don't see why he's facing who he is. Was that meant to be someone else who couldn't make it? You got Lopez as well on there early on, which I think probably was on there, but you know what I mean? I think there's a couple bits where this probably wasn't the card wanted, but I think overall that's what happens in these fight cards, and sometimes they come off, and sometimes they lack in areas due to that problem where you can have the best intentions in the world, making the best card in the world and best card ever, but sometimes it just doesn't come off with availability of fighters, injuries, and just what individual fighters want. And I think you got that currently in the UFC more than ever, where there is a lot less fights for fighters at that top level than there ever has been before. And I think not having a heavyweight, we have got one heavyweight co-main, but I'd expect on a big card to have at least two heavyweight fights just to boost it a bit. Heavyweight fights are what make the whole game. They're the biggest guys. They're in this sense they would beat anyone if they're champion in the heavyweight division. They're better than everyone. They're the biggest guy. They would win. And I just thought that co-main's great. I think it really kicks a little thing at Aspinall. I think Aspinall will be quite annoyed at it, because hey, look, what are the conversations there? Is he coming back soon or is he not? And that's a question for another day. But to have an interim title shot after you got eye poked by the guy who's now getting another title shot for interim, I think it will look, it's a business. I think you've got to carry on, and I don't think there's many matchups in that heavyweight division that Pereira could have, but for John Jones, which I don't think he'd be able to make the card. And that causes you to have to take what you can get, which is probably Gane, because he's the biggest star in there, other than Jones and Aspinall, to face a Pereira. I think otherwise you got one star and you got no star on the other side for a co-main. That's a big problem, especially on this size of card. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.